Welcome to Shop Talk Live, episode number 197. Today, I sit down with Mike and Anissa, and we talk about different options for clean, mitered cases, veneering curved legs, buying old machinery, and painting MDF. And of course, we talk about our all-time favorite tools of all time for this week. I want to let everyone know that Fine Woodworking Hands-On San Diego is coming up, and classes are filling up quickly, but we actually have discounted 2 of the classes. So head on over to the website. We've got discounts on Michael Fortune's design class and Vic Teslin's Japanese toolbox class. So if you were interested in taking them and just couldn't quite swing it, we've lowered the price a little bit, make it a little bit easier. And also, we are in the final stages of setting up Fine Woodworking Live 2020. We've got some of the presenters booked, even a keynote booked. I'm going to be mum's the word right now. But if you are interested in going to Fine Woodworking Live 2020, again in Southbridge, Massachusetts, make sure you are on our newsletter email list. If you didn't know, we have an email list, and every Saturday we send out an email with news and updates about everything going on here at Fine Woodworking, and there's links to everything that gets posted on finewoodworking.com. So if you ever feel like you missed something that had gotten posted, you didn't see it on the website or whatever, signing up for that Saturday e-letter, that's the best way of keeping tabs on all of the updates here at finewoodworking.com. Articles, events, podcasts, all of that stuff. But enough of that. Here is Shop Talk Live, number 197.
Does it bother you that he changes the order of the questions?
It does not bother me
Mike
at all.
doesn't read the questions beforehand.
Oh.
Why does yours have color on it?
Because that way, what?
Well, not only that, but she has literally printed things out in a second color and taped it to the piece of paper, like an old school newspaper editor or something.
Wow. Are those like your answers to the questions?
No, this was an answer that I gave Ben to put on his magic screen that he didn't even do anyway. So I figured rather than, I thought I was going to be sitting there, rather than turning around and reading off of that I would just stick it on here. And I was too lazy to handwrite it.
Do you read the questions beforehand?
I do.
Yeah, okay. You actually check the email box, don't you?
When I'm bored and I have no good emails, I'll check the Shop Talk Live. Yeah, I do.
Cool.
On occasion. That's okay, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All good. Should we answer one of those questions?
Yeah.
All right. This first question is from Elijah. I'm planning on building a floating media cabinet out of 5-quarter cherry. The basic idea of the cabinet is an open box that looks like you can see through to the wall. However, it will actually have a false back made of 1/4-inch MDF painted the same color as the wall to hide all the wires. I love this idea.
That is cool.
Yeah. For this project, I like the clean look of miter joints, but I'm worried that it will not be strong enough. The cabinet will be 48 inches wide, 10 inches tall, and 14 inches deep. So we have 14-inch miters, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do I need to reinforce the miter somehow, or will gluing the false back strengthen it sufficiently?
This is a good question.
For Anissa.
It's just a good question.
Well, I mean, at first I thought, oh, yeah, this is a slam dunk. Anissa can answer this because you just did this.
No, but I can't.
You did it with plywood.
Exactly.
So answer.
And what makes it different?
Talk about it being okay with plywood.
Okay.
Do you feel strongly about this?
I do feel strongly about this, by the way.
Miter joints on plywood.
So, to answer his question, absolutely 100% yes, you need to reinforce that miter on solid wood because it's all end grain to end grain. But if you're using plywood, you have a ton of long grain to long grain.
In the plies.
50%?
Depending on when
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, even possibly even more. So at the very least, you have 50%
Right.
end grain or long grain.
And even the end grain, it's at 45 degrees. So you're sort of halfway between end grain and long grain. So that's adding strength to the plywood.
Yeah.
I think the problem with the 5/4 cherry being solid stock, so you are getting more strength than just end grain on that miter joint, but because it's solid stock, as that expands and contracts in thickness, depending on humidity in the season, the geometry of the miter joint is actually changing. So it's going from 45 to either less or more than 45.
This is still so...
As that thickness of the stock goes up and down, right?
Yeah.
So you're really stressing that change in geometry is what stresses a miter joint. Because if after it's glued, a miter joint in solid wood is super, super strong. It's not going to break. But after expands and contracts and you're changing the geometry of that miter joint, I think you're really stressing out the joint to where you're going to get failure there at some point.
So that's why you're more likely to see failure or gaps in the inside of a miter joint over time.
Inside or outside, yeah.
But the inside's going to change in thickness more than the outside. So the change is more dramatic.
I mean, where you're really going to see it is like in a frame miter, flat miter across a wide width. You're going to either open up the outside or the inside, depending on what that wood is doing. So if the wood is swelling, it's going to bust open the outside corner. If the wood is shrinking, it's going to pop the inside.
Gotcha. Yeah. Woodworking is hard.
It sucks. So what would you do? How would you reinforce it?
I have thought the same thing. I really I like the look of the miter joint. It's so clean.
Yeah.
I have done, not on something as big, but I've mitered dovetails. And that gives you from the top, if it's like a half-blind mitered dovetail, from the top you're getting that clean look. From the front you're getting that clean look. And then on the sides you can see the dovetails. And we just so happen to have Chris Gochner on the cover of the last issue.
Yeah, so just go from a straight miter to like the most difficult joint you can cut.
It's real. Well, is it?
If I had done that, I'd find a way of dropping that sentence into every conversation.
I just look.
I have half-line miter dovetails.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Thank you. I would like a plastic bag.
It was the first time I ever did dovetails. It was at school. But listen, I practiced them forever. That the little thing I did, I call Franken cabinet, because there are so many patches on that thing. You can't see them because I learned at the same time to patch my work.
And it fears fire.
And it fears fire?
Yes.
Because of all the glue?
Frankenstein feared fire. So
did he?
Yeah, sorry. Well, that was weak.
Yeah.
Mike's going strong.
I went right there, and I think it was too quick.
Yeah, maybe.
What about, who's the guy who designed your table that you made?
Chafin.
He did the wall box things.
Yeah, those are great.
Were those just miters?
Hang on. I'll have to look.
I don't know.
Or were they plywood or solid? Was it solid wood? Because whatever he did.
Just do whatever Daniel Chafin does. What about L-tenons?
Oh, we have an article on that too.
We do.
Like 3 ways to fortify your L-tenon or fortify your miters or something like that.
You can do like the through miter, so you see the little cross piece on the ends. If you don't, you can do a stop miter. You can do the cross grain cut, like after it's already mitered. You could either do a spline or even a dovetail key slot across the corners.
You could just peg a miter too, right? Would that work?
You're going to see it, right?
Yeah.
You mean just drill through it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So 3D shelves alive in any room.
Yeah.
That's before we cared about SEO, apparently. They're dovetailed.
Okay.
Yeah, they're just straight up dovetailed. Oh, and then this is a good option. He has some with pinned rabbits.
I think that's just like a hanging frame he used or something. So he dovetailed those. Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, I guess if you mitered them and pegged them from the side, you wouldn't see it in the front or in the top.
Yeah. I mean, it brings up a good topic of the way you go about building something in terms of it being strong is integral to how it looks. And it's hard to separate one from the other. I want it to look exactly like this, but then it needs to be strong, when a lot of methods for making it strong will make it not look exactly like that.
Yeah.
So whereas Michael Fortune, he's like, nope, it's going to look like whatever way I want it to look, and I will figure out how to make it strong, which he does really well. That's one approach. My approach is more the strength, the joinery I use to make something strong becomes a decorative element. So if you get sort of caught halfway in between those two things, then I think you need to decide which way you want to go. Either build it in a way that's stronger that may change the visuals, or, figure out how to hide some strength within that miter. Either way, I think you have to do one or the other.
I think, so in preparation for this question, I looked over that L-tenon article, and Tim Coleman's aluminum L-tenons, that's just too stinking cool.
Yeah.
To not try. I think aesthetically, if you could pull off the mitered dovetail, even if it was just, it wouldn't have to be a half-blind mitered dovetail like Chris used. Even if it was just a mitered dovetail, so at the front is mitered.
Oh,
yeah,
giving you that
point.
profile.
Right.
That's what I've done.
Yeah,
actually,
that's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, but the Gochner half-blind mitered dovetail is incredible too.
Hey, didn't you do video on that? Don't you?
No.
You don't have a video of him?
No, John did a like a breakout online extra article of it.
That's what it is.
I will link to.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and it's step by step, and it looks like I could maybe do it.
Well, Michael Fortune has an article on how to miter half-blind dovetails. I think he uses a jig.
A jig.
To hold the piece.
I just looked at John Benson's blog, which covered Chris's technique more in depth than we were able to do in the article.
That's what I was looking at.
Oh, I can do that.
Oh, yeah. He uses the coping saw to waste away everything, and then he's just using that 45 ramp just to clean it up at the end.
Yeah,
that's
like
what
a
was
little pairing block.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he cuts the tails, and the tails board leaves it square. He doesn't miter that, and he lays out the entire joint as if it's just a through dovetail. He takes that square edge board has the tails cut, puts it on top of the pins board, scribes it, and then just instead of sawing all the way through, you're just sawing at a 45-degree angle as if it's a half-blind dovetail. And then you're just coping out the waist and pairing it at an angle. It was really smart.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, question number 2 is from Reg. We've got some next level questions going on this episode. I'm trying to make Birdseye maple legs that have face grain on all 4 sides. Unlike white oak laminated legs, the side grain on Birdseye is obtrusively different, and a lamination would be obvious if done in the white oak manner of laminating on only 2 sides. So I think I need 4-sided laminations, which seems to mean mitered laminations. What is the best way to go about this? I'm assuming some core 4 square stock is the starting point. These are going to be Krenov type legs, so thinly laminated finished leg seems out of the question.
In the photo they sent,
I put one up there.
they were like shaped legs.
Yeah.
They're not like full on just square legs like an arts and crafts leg.
Well, this is, go back one. This is the photo that Reg sent of his mock-up.
So kind of that Krenov bell-bottom style leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that other picture? Because I was looking for that article.
That was Anissa's answer.
That was yours. Okay. I was asking everybody because I thought it was John Benson's. I asked him. He goes, I kind of remember. And then it was yours.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's not mine anymore. This article hasn't come out yet.
That's what I thought.
Right.
Yeah, because it was just weird.
So just hang tight, Reg. Hang tight.
Yeah.
Keep your subscription going.
Right,
and hang
exactly.
tight.
It's not scheduled yet. And so basically this article is covering exactly this question. Yeah. So the author is Mason McBrien, and Barry's actually working with him on this now. And he's using commercial veneer because he said shops on veneer is going to, that curve that you were asking about, it might be too tight for a shops on veneer.
Okay.
And then you're also not having to worry about the end grain thing that Reg was talking about.
Right. So you're talking about just actually veneering the surface of the shaped leg after it's shaped with thin veneer.
Correct. Yeah. And Mason has really cool ideas for using clear templates and shaping his calls.
His whole technique is...
It's really incredible.
But also, he's book matching the veneer.
It's just that you can't read it because it's not an article.
Exactly. But it's a great question.
Yes, it
that
is.
just confirms that we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, so the answer is the faces are shaped, but the faces they're flat curves. And so you're saying shape the leg however you want and then just veneer those faces with a thin veneer. And because it's super thin, the end grain at the corners is not an issue.
Exactly. Yeah.
So if you veneered this, that's one thing that I didn't think of is that with purchase veneer, do you think you would be able to get away with only doing 2 faces?
I think you do all 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're doing all 4.
You commit to the 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say yes. Or you completely forego veneer and you work with riffs on stock, so all 4 faces look the same.
Is riffs on Birdseye going to look?
I don't know. Does Birdseye only manifest itself in the plain sawn face? Because he said face. I'm guessing he meant the plain sawn face. I've never stopped to think. Or is the Birdseye only in the quarter sawn face?
You would think one of us would know. Or one of you two would know.
One of you should know.
Yeah, one of you should know.
I
think Jeff should know.
Jeff? Somebody call Benson. He's got it in a book somewhere down there. With a little piece of veneer stuck in that page of Birdseye maple. So we don't have an answer for Reg. Other than try shops or purchase
commercial veneer. Custom calls. I would actually, if you have Reg's email, I can email some of, I'll ask Mason if he minds if I pass along some of the info and then
Reg, you buy Mason a beer if you're ever in Mid-Coast Maine.
Or go with riffs on Birdseye stock. So the faces are uniform, but it might look really bad. You might have it might be like 0 Birdseyes left.
I think you just get one of those stain markers and draw the Birdseyes in where it's not showing up.
Yeah, let's go back to Birdseye maple. Why are we working with Birdseye maple?
Because a lot of people really like it.
I know. It's nice. It's hard to find anymore. Like really good stuff.
I've got a board.
You get a board?
Yeah.
I know a guy with a board.
Yeah. I'm trying to think where I got that. Whatever. All right. This is good pod.
Yeah.
So, all right. Who wants to talk about their all-time favorite tool of all time for this week?
I will. I actually remember this was an all-time favorite tool of all time of the week, like years ago, like way. But that actually turned into a tool bomb because I didn't like it. It didn't work.
And now?
I do, but it's different. So way back when, my favorite tool of all time of the week was a hold fast that we were at Home Depot, and it was like a hold fast that was like the painted black shiny hold fast. And my son was with me and said, "What's that?" And he said, "Oh, I'll buy it and show you. It's really cool. You take it home, put it in a hole, you give it a bang with a hammer, it holds things down." So that was like super cool. It was nice to be able to convey that. However, that particular brand hold fast or type, it just ended up not working. Like it wouldn't really, and I just assumed that maybe my bench top was not thick enough because it wasn't built super, super thick. So anyway, hold fast, that went away a long time ago. But I was recently in Birmingham demonstrating a woodworking guild for the weekend, and they had all of these, Nicholson style benches which looked like really dumb, but they were really cool. And they had was it Tools for Working Wood Holdfasts?
Yeah, the Gramercy's.
Gramercy Holdfast there. And I was using them during the weekend. It's like I hit it. It's like, oh, this works really well. So I think probably for the whole weekend, I kept exclaiming how cool these holdfasts were. So they sent me home with a pair of them. And that was cool. That was great. Really, really nice. But they just kind of stayed near my workbench in storage because I just assumed my workbench was not thick enough for them. It's only maybe inch and a half thick or something. But I did have some 3/4-inch holes drilled in there for some Veritas bench dogs a while back. But I was working on a piece. I was doing some chiseling. I had these long legs, and I just kind of wanted to support them on the bench while I was squaring up the mortises with a chisel. And I remembered the holdfast. I said, well, let me just try it. And they worked incredibly well. I mean, it's amazing. You put them in, you give them a pop. One causes the workpiece to pivot a little bit, but I had a pair in line just to hold down like a little case leg. And it was amazing. It was fast. And I know I'm telling you something, Ben, like you're thinking, yeah, I know, Mike. It's a holdfast. They work really well.
Welcome, Mike.
Yes. So amazing. They worked. It was amazing. They work really well. You give them a bang, super tight. You hit them upside the back end and they pop right up.
Well, and there's just something like primal about using them too.
Yeah.
Especially, I use them when I'm carving tops.
Yeah.
And it's like you bash something with a metal hammer and then do something really teeny tiny and delicate. And then bash it to get it and move it and bash it again.
Yeah.
It's like a little movie soundtrack. Bump.
Very cool. And these already have the little leather pads glued onto them,
yeah.
which they took care of. And so anyway.
What do you know what they glued the leather on with?
I don't know.
Because I recently glued on Dave Fisher.
Whatever
Our
Dave
friend.
Fisher
Oh, we were talking
does.
about Dave Fisher before we started rolling.
Our friend Dave Fisher uses for like all of his like hold fast needs. He uses you get it at Tractor Supply Company, and it's like some harvester belt or something.
What?
It's like this rubber belt that you buy. It was like $40 for a roll. And you cut it into teeny tiny little pieces, and it's like grippy as all get out.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a router mat in a...
It looks like just a rubber pad, like a rubber mat.
Floor mat.
Like a floor mat, kind of.
Okay.
I'll bring in some. And it's really, really grippy, but the problem that I have with it is it like nothing sticks to it too.
Not
so
like a contact cement or something.
yeah, I've used contact cement when I put together the bowl horse for him for live. I used that and that worked well, but I could not get any of the stuff to glue to the holdfast. I did some contact cement on one and I did epoxy on the other. And then I lost track of which was which. One of them fell off and I was like, okay, well, this other one's the winner. I still don't know what it is. And then the other one fell off like the next day. Oh. So I need to glue some leather on because that rubber doesn't stick to anything.
Interesting.
But so really good grippy stuff.
Cool. Hold fast.
Do you use holdfasts?
No.
Good.
Nothing against them. I just don't have any.
Okay.
So thanks again to the folks at the Alabama Woodworkers Guild. Holdfasts.
Yeah, and if you're gonna buy some, the Gramercy's are like, I think it's $40 for two.
Really?
That's one of those like.
I didn't know they're that inexpensive.
Why didn't I buy these a lot?
That's not like
sooner.
That good of a gift if they weren't that expensive.
Wow, you really turned that one. Gramercy Holdfast. I am so bad at typing on my iPad.
Well, Tractor Supply must have a link to that stuff you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Do you want me to post a link to that?
You know,
yes,
you
please.
need to use two-sided tape.
I bet you that would work.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll give you some of mine.
You already did. You gave me a roll.
I think super glue would work. Seriously.
All right.
That could work.
I'll try
Unless
that too.
it's too brittle.
I'll try. I have two. I'll glue the pads on. I'll let you know.
So it's a contest.
6,000.
Yeah.
I'll put a picture of Mike on one, and I'll put a picture of Anissa on the other, and then I'll bash them with hammers. Talk about primal.
Okay.
You want to go next, or you want me to go next? I'll go next.
Yeah.
Mine is my CNC, but I'm not using it as a CNC as much. I have a little CNC, and I had a need for a pin router, which is basically a pin router. You don't see them much. It's basically you suspend a router face down, would we call it?
I thought the bit was
down.
it's like a router table with a bit sticking up, but there's a pin located above the router bit.
Opposite. There's a pin sticking up from the router table, and like Tim Coleman has a pin router, and the bit is above the work table.
Oh, okay.
And so basically it is a router perfectly suspended in air.
Over a registration
Over a table or registration pin or whatever. And I have been with these ukes that I'm making, there's various needs for pin routers all of a sudden. One is before you carve the top, you do like a little 1/4-inch lip all around the top to give yourself a stopping point.
Cool.
Stop carving here. And that's fine and dandy. It would be easy to do with a rabbiting bit or whatever. But the tops generally are wedge shaped because you're trying to save wood.
Oh, okay.
So you can't take this wedge shaped flippy floppy board over a router table with a rabbiting bit.
Okay.
And you have nothing to reference. So a pin router comes in where you've got your table, just a flat table, and a router hanging suspended in air, and you just feed it into the bit slowly and carefully. And it's a great lesson in grain direction because you're constantly trying to figure out which direction you're going to come in with this thing. But it worked really well for that. And then I had the problem where I had carved too much away from one area on the top and bottom plates of this uke I'm working on now. And you said, oh, well, can you just route out a flat surface and glue a patch in? I was like, yeah, it's a great idea. And then I got back to my desk and I realized, no, it's not a great idea. I don't have a reference surface. I have no way of routing this because it's already carved.
But it was still a good idea.
It turned into a good idea when I realized that I could suspend my router in air, a la pin router. And I made a little sled to put the top plate in that only held it on the edges so that it kept everything flat in one plane. Okay. And then I just lowered the router and zip, 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 zip.
So your CNC is like this XY kind of thing that the router mounts into?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Worked really well. Yeah. I use it more in that configuration than I probably ever will as a CNC.
Awesome. I apologize. I looked a little distracted while you were answering that question because I noticed the magazines on the back wall.
It's
supposed to be all fine woodworking magazines, but there's a cooking, a threads, a cook fresh, fine home building.
Okay, so.
But that's the Chris Gochner sideboard that we were talking about on the cover of that.
Oh, yes.
It is.
It's beautiful.
We have many podcasts recorded in this room.
Yes.
And we had to switch out the magazines every time.
Yes.
And sometimes we forgot. Yeah. So it would be all threads back there. So Jeff and I were talking, we should just put everybody up there so it doesn't matter.
Oh.
Okay. I don't like that.
That's tough. One for no.
I must say, though, you do have the grilling special issue for fine cooking. That's pretty good. You could do a checkerboard with woodworking and grilling.
Okay.
No, there's that fine cooking that has that cast iron skillet dish thing.
Oh, it's on your desk right now.
It is, because I picked up another one yesterday, and if you look at that article, it has the best head ever. It has a whole bunch of cast iron skillets, and the head is panorama.
Oh, God. Slow clap.
Pan-orama.
Somebody needs a raise.
Right? It's brilliant. And that dish looks good. It's salmon and avocado and I'm going to make that. Someday I'm going to make that. And my children will not eat it.
And you're going to giggle the whole time thinking panorama.
I have, well, I don't want to jinx it because it could still go away. You might know what I'm talking about. And he has the power to take it away.
I won't take it away.
Promise?
Yes.
Are we making editorial decisions on air right now about and not?
It has one round to go through.
Oh.
And it's still in there. Should I say or no?
No, you should. No, you made me promise to not talk about this head.
Oh, did I tell you about that?
Yes.
I'm so excited about it.
We'll talk about it after it comes out. Fine listeners of Shop Talk Live. What's your all-time favorite tool of all time for this week?
It's in Chris Becksford's article. Look for it.
The berry box.
The berry box that's coming out in the next issue.
It's like a little treasure hunt in the fine woodworking now.
It is. I am so excited. It's not even the head of the article. It's just one little bee head.
Okay.
One more round to go through. I went in my shop last night and was just looking around to figure out what my favorite tool is. And I think somebody has said this before. I'm sure somebody has said it before.
Matter.
It doesn't matter. That's the conclusion I came to. And that my shop is a total mess right now and I need to spend a day cleaning it. But it's just my marking gauges. I just love my marking gauges. And then I have two different ones. I'm not speaking to any of the ones that I don't have. I'm not saying that they're not good. I just don't have any of them. Like the wooden ones that I've used have all felt too clunky for me.
Okay.
But I have a Veritas and then I have the Glendrake, the Tight Mark with the little micro adjust thing. And I like having two.
Yes. Minimum of two.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was fooling around with both of them, trying to see which one I liked better. And I like them both a lot. I do like the micro adjust, but.
So I have the Veritas with, this is going to be in air quotes, micro adjust. Because it's not like the old school one. The new micro adjust is fantastic. The new Veritas micro adjust is totally different and it's fantastic. The old one, I like it. It's great as a backup marking gauge. And then I have a Bob Van Dyke.
Yeah, that is the ultimate marking gauge. Have you tried one?
No.
I'll bring one in for you to goof around with. And I wouldn't say that lightly.
Oh, no, I know.
It is. And I like the other ones as well. Tight Mark. I had the Veritas for years and years. A problem with that, if I was doing like a lot of scribing of the same dimension on a lot of parts, that little wheel sometimes I would accidentally loosen that and it would slip. And then that's like super scary when you lose your mark. But it was a good wheel. But the Tight Mark with that micro adjust, super, super nice.
Yeah.
I remember I did a review video of the new Veritas, and somebody had said, "Oh, I don't like wheel marking gauges. I got a Veritas, and when the wheel was loose enough to turn, it was inaccurate because it wobbled all over the place."
Oh.
And I immediately thought, I was like, "What is wrong with you?" And then I remember thinking back when I got my Veritas years ago and thinking, "Why doesn't this turn?" And not realizing that it was just a round blade.
Yes, it's not supposed to
just
spin.
a round blade, and if it loosens up, it is going to be
But
useless.
if you think in terms of a pizza cutter, that wheel rolls. So there is an analogy to where one might expect it to roll.
Yeah, you would, if that's your first time using one, or you haven't used a marking gauge, you would want it to roll.
Yeah.
And so if anybody is out there and annoyed with wheel style marking gauges because it's wobbly, it's not supposed to be.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's all I got.
All right.
Well, speaking of that article about trying to get that bee head through, I think
yeah.
the one thing that all the editors on the staff tend to work the hardest at is keeping little pithy panel heads or puns. They write them and they see how many rounds it stays before Tom McKenna finds it and kills it.
I want this so bad. It's a good one.
It is good.
Just one more round and that thing is in there for good.
Yes. I think my favorite one that almost made it was written by Rodney Diaz years ago, who's now the art director for Fine Home Building, but he was my assistant for a while. I should have been his assistant because he's a much better art director than I am. But we were doing an article on the saw stop. And the whole thing where you take like a piece of chicken. I think we were demonstrating with a piece of chicken on the saw stop.
And they were doing hot dogs.
Yeah, they were doing hot dogs. But we had like this demonstrating like this little chicken leg and, the blade hits it and it goes. And so like the panel head was faster than a speeding pullet. It's brilliant. It's like a pullet is a young chicken. Right. And the editor who saw it, because we wrote it as art people and we don't get to write anything. So the sponsoring editor who saw it said, what is this? It's bullet is spelled wrong. No, he said pullet. He goes, it's pronounced poulet. And that made no sense. So he killed it. So anyway, the panel head that almost was.
That's brilliant.
All right, let's take a break. If you've been listening to Shop Talk Live for a while, you know that Barry likes to give me a hard time when it's Lee Valley free shipping because I can't help but spend money when that's happening. And everyone should know right now, August 27th through September 9th, Lee Valley has free shipping on orders of $40 or more. I'm planning on ordering Lee Valley's detailed hand scraper and their extra long adhesive bandages. Basically Band-Aids that have extra length to them so you can wrap them around your finger and they actually stay on your finger when you cut yourself with the side of your chisels like I have a tendency of doing. So head on over to leevalley.com, orders of $40 or more, get free shipping from now until September 9th. All right, question number 3 is from Dave. What machinery can be bought vintage and what should be bought new? It seems as though this kind of discussion is all but exhausted when it comes to hand tools, but I don't hear as much about the bigger purchases in the shop. For instance, not much has changed for drill presses, so an old stout model seems like a chance to save some money. Meanwhile, it's clear that table saws have improved dramatically with regards to safety and dust collection, so if a saw stop is attainable, I should budget accordingly. But what are your thoughts about bandsaws, joiners, planers, lathes, and the like? Are some types of shop equipment less vulnerable to the risks of buying used?
Yeah, that's a good question. You and Barry are sort of on the old machine hunt these days.
This otherwise said poor.
Well, you guys were talking about the bandsaw that you came across. That was like an old.
That for me is more like this romantic infatuation. Like I think of myself as an old man with the like old cast iron bandsaw in the corner, and like, that's a me thing. New bandsaws are fantastic.
Yeah. A lot of it comes down to a couple different considerations. One is it's so giant that it's super hard to move. Like, I can buy a 36-inch, fill in the name, Oliver Yates bandsaw, from the 1920s. But I have to move it, and it's 9 feet high, and my shop ceiling is 8 feet, so I have to cut a hole in the floor. And it's got a motor, but it's a 3-phase, so do I want a new motor? And there's no blade guards on it, and it kind of, if you're talking about a machine, I want to buy an old machine that I can, without being a machinist or a rehab person as a hobby, put it to use as a woodworker. I think it limits things a little bit. I think old drill presses are great because they made a whole lot of them, especially you'll find tons and tons of the benchtop style because in, machine shops and factories and stuff, you would just have whole rows of drill presses set up for different operations, kind of assembly line stuff. So those things are pretty inexpensive and super bomb-proof, and I would definitely recommend that. Old lathes tend to be pretty good.
The thing that when using a modern lathe, being able to just dial in the speed.
Yeah.
That is super nice. Is that necessary? No. Peter Galbert doesn't have one, and I'll never be a Peter Galbert when it comes to turning or anything, actually. Yeah. But so I'm fine with my old belt-driven lathe that I have to change the pulleys on. Drill press too. I'm not going to change the speed much. As long as the quill throw is long enough, like 4 inches or whatever, I'm fine. Again, I like romantically yearn for a Powermatic or a Delta with the foot pedal that throws the
That's cool.
The quill, like Tim Rousseau and Chris Gochner have. Just want one. Don't know why. A jointer, there's really nothing to them. It's a motor and a spinning head.
Couple beds, make sure they're parallel.
Cast iron, you know. I had to switch out the motor on my jointer because it was 3-phase. There was a pain, but it was well worth it. And there's not much to it. Bandsaw, if I was going for a bigger one, like a 16-inch or 17, I think I'd go new. Because the price is comparable. Like your bandsaw is probably close in cost to an old big bandsaw once you get it up and running.
Once you do everything you need to do. Yeah.
So.
What's your take, Anissa? Are you...
My take is that some people have more of an aptitude and more of an inclination to rehab stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're wired that way and interested in that, then I think you could buy anything used and you can figure out how to make it safer. You can get it working well. That's not me, but there are a lot of people who do that really well and who like spending the time. Or if you don't do that already and you have the time and the interest in going through the learning curve of doing that, then I think it's great to get all the old stuff. You can do beautiful work with really old tools. Until I just went out for a shoot in California, I would have said the exception being the saw stop. But one of my authors has, I can't remember what brand it was. I can barely remember my kids' names. A really old table saw. And it is on the coolest handmade stand ever. And we were talking about why he was using that table saw, because his shop is a mix of really old school stuff, hand tools, as well as a lot of new stuff in both hand tools and machinery. And his thought was, I was going to get a saw stop. I like the safety. It's an incredible saw. But I've had this for years and it's super accurate. And I realized I don't do a ton of stuff on my table saw anymore.
Right.
I have a Festool circ saw, and I'm using that to cut down bigger stuff and sheet goods. And up until recently, he was using a tiny little old jointer that he was making work. But again, he's one of those people who can really maintain. It's David Welter who
and get the most out of his equipment.
Right.
Yeah.
He can get the most out of his equipment, and he's been maintaining the Krenov school machines for 30 years before he retired. So he's really mechanically inclined.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that you can buy anything used if you're willing to either put the time in or you already have those skills.
Yeah.
So.
Did you get the spoke shave photos?
I did, yeah.
Awesome.
You told me to, right?
Yeah, well, that doesn't mean anything, but yes.
Sure it does.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. He was great to work with.
I'd buy a new planer.
New planer.
Helical head is important. If I was dropping more money than a bench top, I'd buy a helical head stationary planer, and I don't want to go through the trouble. I would just buy a new planer.
Instead of switching out the head.
Yeah.
Segmented cutter head. That's one of the innovations, that's a
I agree with that.
That's huge. And the saw stop, I have the saw stop. I love it. I would do the same thing again in a heartbeat. But the thing that came down to for me was that, because I'm kind of the same thing. When you're making a piece of furniture, you're not actually on the table saw all that much.
You're not.
And if I was only making furniture, I don't know if I would have stepped up to a saw stop. It's because doing a lot of class prep, running a lot of stock, having the table saw on for an extended time through a lot of repetitions, that was the over-under for me. That's when it got a little bit scary.
Yeah.
But I think if you're buying a new table saw, you have to buy a saw stop.
If you're,
just do. Let's end that discussion.
Okay.
But if you have a table saw and you're a furniture maker and it's like, do I need to upgrade? It's your call. But, Chris Bexford, Steve Latta, guys who've been woodworking for a really long time and then finally upgrading. Chris especially, didn't he? He like nicked a finger or something after he
did. I think Nancy Hiller may have too.
Yeah.
However, a saw stop's not going to help with kickback.
With the riving knife.
Well, the riving knife does. But
and that is my barrier for entry. I need a riving knife. I'm not going to work on a table saw without a riving knife.
Would you do a shop made? Would you work on a table saw with a shop made riving knife?
It's okay. I did for, my unisaw. I finally put the little splitter riving knife in there, and it's better than nothing.
I spent $200 when I bought his unisaw. I spent $200 on the riving knife guard thing because that was like, honestly, it's kind of the deal I made with my wife.
Yeah.
It just, that was my comfort level point. So,
cool.
All right. Question number 4. Esoteric one from Frank. I'm making several MDF plinths for an upcoming exhibit. They are 16 inches square. I mitered the edges so that the only visible end grain is at the top. I'm looking for painting suggestions. Some videos say to use Zinsser Bin, B-I-N, and others say to just use regular drywall type primer, then lightly sand before applying primary color. Do you have any suggestions that would steer me in the proper direction? Plinthy?
So for Fine Woodworking Live, we have a student exhibition, which we have a Fine Woodworking Live powwow coming up like in an hour, right?
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Fine Woodworking Live is fun.
I'm too.
Is she saying that in a reassuring way?
We're supposed to come up with presenters and topics, and I came up with a cheat. I told Ben, hopefully he won't steal all of my ideas, and I nailed it. I thought of this. I thought, I'm just going to do that. And I came up with like a million ideas. I'm going to be like the star of the show.
No. I have mine already ready to go.
Okay, let's answer the question.
Okay. So one of the things we do is the student exhibition. And when we started doing that, we decided that the presenters needed plinths for under their pieces. And Victoria Allport from Center for Furniture Craftsmanship helped me out a lot, and she gave me the specs that they use. And if you ever see one of their shows or the Fine Woodworking Live exhibition, they look fantastic, I think. And she was very generous with a lot of help getting those shows together. And one of the things that they require and that we've done for the past few years with Live is the only directions I give people are as far as the paint. The plinths should be painted bright white with an eggshell finish. And all of our exhibitors make their own plinths, and they do it all differently. Some of them miter, they take the extra time to miter everything. Most of them are just kind of, would that be a butt joint?
Yeah.
Yeah, butt joining everything together. But they all have bright white paint with an eggshell finish, and they look fantastic. And nobody's noticing whether it's mitered because they're looking at the furniture. Yeah. And if it's a really well-done butt joint, it looks fantastic, and nobody's paying attention to that. They're paying attention to the piece that's on top of the plinth.
So you're absolutely right. In his email signature, it looked like he works for a museum.
Oh.
Then...
So doesn't matter, doesn't count for him.
Okay. I think you have to go to school to make museum plinths. That's its own thing.
There's a museum plinth school in Newtown, right?
There is.
Down the street.
Yeah, it's a 2-year program.
Shoot.
Okay. I have no idea what you guys are
You know what Bob Van Dyke does? He does a thing, like you like a miter box has the 4 sides are mitered. Well, he'll do a box, so 4 sides plus a top. He'll even do a bottom too. So he'll miter the sides. He'll also miter the top and bottom edges of the sides, and then miter all 4 sides of the top and the bottom.
Right.
So that's
Mega plinth, yeah.
Yes.
But I think we should have a plinth article and a crate article. Have you done a crate article?
No one wants to do it. I make really good crates.
I know.
We know.
A crating furniture article and a plinth article would be great.
The edges of...
I think they both have about the same reach in terms of...
reach dozens of people.
Yes.
I don't know.
The edges of MDF, though... Now, finishing MDF, I think, does have far reach.
Okay.
Or painting MDF. If you check out Mike Farrington's videos on YouTube, he's got a couple of videos about painting MDF. And he does a lot of finished carpentry work, a lot of wainscoting with MDF and built-ins made out of MDF and all sorts of... The one thing that he uses is it. It's like a table saw blade. It's called an edge tech or something. And basically it is a beveled plate that you put on your table saw and adhere sandpaper to it. And then you bevel the table saw blade.
Angle the blade.
You angle the blade so that it's at 90 degrees in the center. Okay. And what this does is it gives you one very, very, it took me a long time to figure out this concept. It gives you one point of contact for the sanding disc. And then you run the edges
like
over your table saw like you're ripping them. And it gives you like a burnished, finished edge like the face of MDF. So it doesn't have a surface difference to it. So your edges would be a lot more acceptable under paint. And then I believe he finishes with, or he primes with bin as well. I have always liked bin as a primer for any painted furniture. For my reason has always been because it's shellac based and it dries like a shellac based thing in 10, 15 minutes.
You throw away your brush.
You throw away your brush or your roller, just keep it covered and throw on 2 coats in the time that you could throw on 1 coat and with sanding in between.
Yeah.
And that's the way that I've always been able to nail my painted finishes is always with really, really good prep work and including bin just because it works so fast.
Yeah.
So I don't know if like the primer aspect of it is better than...
I love shellac-based primer.
Yeah.
And just the white tinted for MD. Yeah, definitely. Because it raises your grain. You sand it super smooth. The next coat of paint on just goes just like glass. Super nice. Yep. And the end grain is the only problem. Actually, this is a tip I picked up from Bill Duckworth, a former editor who unfortunately recently passed away. Really, really good guy. But he'd done an article on MDF for the magazine, and I got the tip from him where I think he uses either like spackle, the stuff in the can, and you just sort of, with your finger, just wipe it on the exposed edges of the MDF just to kind of seal that grain a little bit. That works really well.
Yeah. So I'll post a link to his article and the Mike Farrington video.
Cool.
And yeah, I agree. If you're building a plinth for one of your pieces, I don't think it matters. Hopefully nobody's looking at it.
Yeah, if you build it our way for a museum, you can get fired.
Yeah, like if your job is building plinths.
Yeah, do not listen to us. If you make a living doing anything we're talking about, that's not good.
All right. Let's see. We have a listener comment on the last episode, 196. We talked about my homemade bending iron.
Yeah.
And somebody had said that a light bulb could easily generate 400 degrees. Remember that the color temperature of a light bulb is typically 32 K because it is at that temperature.
You're saying 3,200 Kelvin? How hot is that, Jeff?
It's at 3,200 degrees Fahrenheit. I looked this up because I was like, there's no way.
It's not.
But the
3,200 Fahrenheit?
No.
That's what it's
Okay.
So
No.
a tungsten bulb.
No.
The filament burns at 3,200.
Daylight
degrees.
is 5,500 K.
Yeah.
No. You're like melting a hole through the core of the earth. What are you talking about?
There is some validity to this.
No,
I don't
it's
think.
not.
Now,
Because
first off,
I have LED lights in my shop for photos. We have those panels, right?
Yeah.
And you dial in the temperature to 5,500 to daylight. It's not 5,500 degrees.
No. It's not. Well, first off, you
Okay.
When you said I have LED panels, it's no longer. It is an incandescent tungsten filament burned. When they made up the rules or whatever, an incandescent tungsten filament burned at 3,200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not right.
We're gonna look it up.
Yeah,
and I'm sure people will comment.
A household incandescent bulb is like 2,700. A halogen bulb is 32.
It's 32, yes. But he's just saying that a 32K incandescent bulb, in theory, the filament is burning at 3,200 degrees. So you can log onto the website and argue with him too.
I'm arguing right now, and he can't answer back. So, like, we're kind of done with this.
He's going to answer back, and many more will. As long as we get those questions and comments, that's all I care about. All right. Let's see. We have a review on iTunes by 1,500 Coins. Everything a woodworking podcast should be up until this episode. I'm currently on episode 26, and I got to think he's going backwards, and love every bit of it. They're super informative and also crack me up when they get off topic. And this is why I think he's going backwards. I just signed up for an unlimited access to Fine Woodworking and can't wait to dive into the content. Thanks for making a woodworking podcast and making it surprisingly comical.
Yeah, because if you started at 1 and you just got to 26 and you really like it, either you're going to be a lot happier later, or it's all downhill from there if that's like your idea of like a perfect podcast. Because
well, I haven't listened to them, so I don't know.
I don't know either. What was number 26?
I don't know.
Oh. That's how every internet woodworker is like, never mind.
Oh, leave it alone. All right. Recommendations. I have a recommendation. We traveled to a guild meeting in the Northern Jersey Woodworking Club or something.
Yeah.
And
Northern New Jersey Woodworkers.
Go on Google and look up your area and look up Woodworking Guild.
Yeah.
And because if there's a woodworking guild around you within an hour drive minimum, go hang out with more woodworkers.
Yes.
Who is we? We?
Mike, Tom, and I went, and we actually did an episode, and it'll be sometime.
Nice.
It was fun. We didn't tell you about it.
I know.
I didn't think we were ever going to tell you about it, but apparently we just did.
Apparently we just told everybody about it, and that I wasn't invited. Barry wasn't invited either, or he just couldn't go that day.
Any other recommendation?
Yeah, a friend of mine, Mike, who took a tool chest class with me, he said, here's a recommendation for you. If you're changing your tire, save the top lug nut for last, because the tire hangs more comfortably from there. And also, if you have like your lug wrench at the top, it's more likely to clear the ground when you're spinning it.
Well, that's why you lower the car so that the wheel is just touching the ground.
Yeah,
so
but he says save the top. No, when you're spinning your wrench, if it's a long wrench, if you're on the lower thing, it can hit the ground and you have to like go halfway, take it, go halfway. But if it's a top one, the chances are you can just spin the wrench.
Oh,
and this was all because Mike, who's a really successful guy, and had a really nice truck. And he was like changing the tire of his truck because the tire was a little bit low. And literally, like in the same parking lot of the woodworking school was like a Pep Boys. And I said, Mike, you can just like drive over Pep Boys. They'll change your tire for you. And he just kind of gave me this look. It was not mean, but it was like, I have this covered. And it was like, okay, yes, you do. And I like total respect. It's like, no, I'm not going to Pep Boys. I'm changing my own tire. And like, that was such a cool thing. So anyway, thanks, Mike. Thanks for the tip.
And then he seemed to stop listening to me in class. It's possibly lost all respect for me. Do you have anything, Anissa?
I do. So it's about unlimited. One of my jobs here is what? It was before I knew that.
Little Miss Promo Girl.
No, it was one of my jobs here at the magazine is to curate the monthly letter that comes out from authors and our contributing editors. And they basically talk about what led them to find woodworking and what, a little bit of their story. And then they recommend some articles. And so part of that job, curating those letters, is reading and getting the links together for the articles that they're recommending. And they're amazing. Their stories are amazing. They're all coming at it from different angles. And then they're all recommending these really cool articles. And then I start flipping through the magazine to find the information I need to give you when I'm passing on all the text.
And then all of a sudden it's time to go home. I just spent all day reading these.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So my recommendation is for Unlimited, to get Unlimited, just so you can get these letters from the authors who are writing them.
Tim Rousseau, Philip Morley did one. Michael Fortune, Chris Bexford. You did one. Yep. Tom did one.
Raleigh did one. I have Chris Gochner's coming up. Nancy Hiller's coming up. I have a really great lineup of them.
Nice.
Like a really diverse lineup, and their stories are really incredible.
Yeah. Jeff, do you have any recommendations? We should ask you. I don't know.
I don't know. I have to think about that.
All right. Well. All right, that's all for this episode of Shop Talk Live. If you have questions you'd like us to answer on the show, send them into shoptalk@ton.com. If you're watching on YouTube, click that thumbs up button. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks for listening.
My mom left me a message, a 5-minute message. Should we listen?
No, we should not listen.
Me, I'm outside. Are you in the house?
This is outro. You know that.
Okay, so then we have 4 minutes and 50 seconds of nothing. Oh wait, she's gonna go in my house. We'll hear if she says bad things about me.
What if she finds something?
She's going to drop applesauce in my fridge.
Is that a euphemism?
No, I saw. That's a leap.
No, only if you make it a leap. It's whatever you want it to be. Exactly.